Hello, everybody, and welcome back to this week's edition of AACRAO's Credential Chats, where we are joined by Heidi Leming. Heidi is the Vice Chancellor for Student Success and Strategic Partnerships at the Tennessee Board of Regents, the College System of Tennessee. Heidi, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
And did I get the name right on my fourth try there?
Absolutely. Yep.
Fantastic. Well, and Heidi is, coming to us from a place that hopefully I think a lot of our, audience is going to be really excited about because you have cut through the credential confusion of what is this stuff to actually going live at just a monstrous scale that is super exciting in Tennessee with the comprehensive learner record. And so maybe just to kick us off before we get into the journey, you could just kind of tell us at a high level what it is you're going big with.
Yeah. So we call our learner record the TBR Cred, CRED, as in credential. And we're going to be doing a full marketing campaign with our students and statewide so that employers and all of our institutions can really kind of share this work out and really inform people about what we're doing. So hopefully the audience knows what a learner record is, and I'm not explaining that. But for us, our learner record is going to include both in-classroom credit-bearing experiences and their participation in what we have classified as different high impact practices that they engage in. Might be internships, certifications, service learning, study abroad. There's a list. And then also some of their out of classroom experiences. So for many years, I come from a student affairs background in the profession with NASPA. We've been talking about co-curricular transcripts for a long time. It's bringing those two together in a verified authenticated learner record for our students that they can place into a wallet and can share with employers, but also to help them articulate the learning that they have experienced at our institutions, including program level learning outcomes for their degrees. So we're really excited because we are going to be the first system of institutions in the US to launch this effort.
That is hugely exciting on just so many levels. And just for people who are into the acronyms, when you talk about the high impact practices, are those aligned with the AAC and U high impact
They
practice?
largely are, yes. We don't use all of them, but we identified those that, in some way, shape, or form, faculty, number one, we're already doing, but also that on a national level, there are associations that have already done the work to define best practices. And so we have minimum definitions that we use. We develop taxonomies for each of our practices, and those have guided our coding of these practices to ensure consistency across our institutions in the state. So a minimum definition has to be met in order for them to be coded in our student information system.
There's just so much awesomeness going on here, and I am just so jealous that you guys get to be out ahead of us, and just have to learn from you, but definitely going to beg, borrow, and steal all your great ideas. You talk about marketing, you talk about aligning with stuff that already exists. It sounds like the Board of Regents in Tennessee has been just, excuse me, super thoughtful about change management. That for all like the credentially and complicated stuff, you all have just been very thoughtful and deliberate about how do we actually do this and succeed in doing it at scale. And so maybe you could just kind of walk us back because this was not something I'm guessing that started in January of 2025 or something like that.
Oh.
But this is a years long effort.
Yeah. Well, the credential, the learner record itself has taken about 7 years of work. But it started with our work around our completion agenda. We were a complete college state, got some early funding. So we're talking about back in 2010. And part of our completion agenda was the use of high impact practices to engage students in their learning because it does lead to greater completion rates, success rates. And so we've just worked kind of incrementally through that process. So the first was engaging faculty. So it was a grounds up group, a grassroots effort, not top down, faculty coming to the table, both universities and community colleges when we started this work. So we had several universities under our governance at the time and developing those taxonomies. So that got us going. And then it's been ongoing, like learning, right? So teaching faculty, what are these practices? How do you do them? What do different, different frameworks look like? And really trying to scale. So our goal is that every one of our students, by the time they graduate, will have experienced at least 2 high impact practices. We don't dictate which practices those are at the campus level, so they can decide where they want to invest their resources. But we have built them into the academic pathways. So it's so that students aren't just like opting in. It just becomes part of their experience, regardless of the institution in our state. We know, because we are now a community and technical college system, that means that there's probably some really significant technical types of credentials that are going to also be really important to our students specifically, right? So again, certifications. If you're earning a certification in a course, we're going to note that on your learner record, but we code that as a high impact practice. So it's evidence-based practices. The data supports that it enhances student learning and connection with our institutions. And so that's kind of where we started. And then it was really about, how do students communicate this with employers, and knowing that if you take a gen ed course, you're learning valuable work skills, right? Like you're learning something that employers say they're looking for. It's not just about, I know how to turn this widget to fix something, right? It's also, I know how to talk to people. I know how to problem solve. Those are the kinds of things that, right now in this moment in time, there's been lots of conversation about the value of higher education. I think we have not done a good job of explaining that, but the learner record will help our students, but also our employers understand the real work that our students are doing on the campus to expand their skill set for the workforce. And so that really is what's been behind the drive to have this learner record, is like show the ROI to others about what our students are learning in our system.
I mean, I am just doing total keg stands on your Kool-Aid because you're just capturing all the why, right? That this is good for everybody. In this moment of people questioning the value of post-secondary, this gives us a chance to showcase it. It gives us a chance to help our learners who we know a lot of times aren't really great at telling that story of their own awesomeness. And what I hear you saying is in Tennessee, you're relieving them of that effort, that we can still help you with that, but we're also not going to put it all on you, that your learning record is telling that story. And you're doing a really integrated way. I want to pick on one thing that you mentioned,
Yeah.
that this is the nerdy crowd that actually knows the difference between a certificate and a certification. And so you mentioned, industry certifications, right? And so
Right.
you are bringing in, if I'm understanding, the ability actually with the learning records to kind of have the data talking to each other, where if I get a certification through an academic experience, even though it's external to my campus, my certification is now actually joining up and being included in my learning record.
Right. And it can happen in a variety of ways, right? So some of our students within their courses are required to sit for a certification as part of their training. That's an easy one because our faculty are there, they're vetting whether or not they pass, and it can go on that academic record. Some of our courses prepare students to take a certification, and they take that after they've left us, right? It doesn't mean that they can't add that to a wallet later, independently. But in order for it to show up on the learner record with our institution, they'd have to somehow have it vetted by our administrative staff as a verified credential. So PLA might be one way. And that also opens opportunity for adults who come back to school to bring with them to the institution. Here's my learning that I had external. I want that brought in for credit. It'll show up on the learner record. But everything that's on there is, verified by the institution. So it's not like some things that you might have right now where students can just go online and get a certification for something and you're not sure about the quality. I mean, that's where we're assuring our employers we're vetting that before it goes on there. One of the things I've heard a lot, I just got back from a conference in Costa Rica around international workforce development. And one of the conversations that many of the vendors we're talking about there on an international are talking about, these large companies are being inundated with resumes that are AI generated. How do you know that that is legitimately what somebody learned? We're going to be able to say you can legitimately trust what's in there because it's being vetted by somebody on a campus. And so while we might provide it to you electronically, when you see that it's coming from our system, you should know that it's not AI generated. It's not something fabricated, because it's only what we're saying has been verified.
I think that what you hit on there is just so central to the role of the registrar of just trusted, accurate, verifiable records. That's, for all the technology that's new,
Mhm.
what we're talking about that's so important has been around for generations of, one of the value propositions of a post-secondary education is you can trust what's on the learning record. And that when we're talking about, as you point out, these, things that are happening both within, the corners of our campuses and beyond, that we can still serve our learning population, not just for 2 or 4 years, but as a lifelong experience in being that trusted authority to say, hey, you don't, relieving the learner of saying, hey, trust me, I completed this thing and I was validated on it, to trust the Tennessee Board of Regents that I have
Right.
this.
Right. Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I tell our institutions, that's why we have to take this seriously in terms of the data that's going into this, right? And making sure that, again, a student's not just able to go in there and add whatever they want. Because it does reflect on our reputation as institutions. If a student says, I know how to do X, and then they go to the job and they don't know how to do that, then because it's a trust factor with an employer, right?
And I think that's kind of in some ways what's given a little bit of a rise to this entire space is, lack of transparency or confusion, or in some cases, lack of trust of what's happening. You said one thing that I want to go back to because it just sounds revolutionary to me, and that, that your grads, you were picturing a scenarios and a dynamic where people come back to the post-secondary institutions, say, hey, can I get this added? And, it's almost as though what you're picturing, and probably why you have the cool job title you have, is that you're thinking about stuff that, this is not this kind of moment in time broadcast that flows one way from the post-secondary institution to the learning record. And then if you need an official copy, pay us and we'll get it to you. To
Mhm.
you're envisioning a lifelong conversation. It
Mhm.
almost sounds like that it's kind of, a alternating current flow of information. Can you describe that and just how you see that playing out with re-engaging learners and continuing to serve learners over decades, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, this will be something that they'll be able to take with them throughout their lives, right? Once they graduate from our institutions. But I think more importantly, because of the type of system that we are, which is a career and technical system, we are always going to be in a place where adults are coming back to us, right? And right at this moment of time, with all of the AI conversation, we don't know what jobs will exist in the future. There are things that are going to be developed that we don't even know about, and that is probably going to require people to get retooled in some fashion with their jobs, right? And so they're going to come back, and then they're going to want to be able to prove that they have learned these additional skills beyond their original degree or certification that they had, right? That got them whatever job they're in now. They're going to have to adjust. I don't think that, my personal opinion, I've been to several conferences recently, the Convergence Conference that AACRAO and UPECA, UPCA, I always say their name wrong, sponsored in DC. And, it was really interesting. A lot of the sessions, I feel like it was a really great conference, because you're hearing what everybody's on the forefront of thinking, and also just like looking at jobs. What does the future look like? We're not going to have enough people to fill jobs. I mean, that's the prediction. Even with AI taking some jobs away, we're not going to have enough people to fill those jobs. So how are you going to trust that people are learning the skills that we really need? Because we're going to still need people to do those things. And it means that people are going to have to go back. People are going to be working longer, probably, unfortunately. But also, they're going to have to go back and get the skills to keep up with the changing landscape in the job market. So that's really what I feel we're really preparing our system for, is to be out there and telling adults, like, we have this for you. This is something you can use that's of value. It's not just about leaving with something. You can come back and still add to this.
I just love that so much. And I know we're right at time, but I can't remember if you actually had a chance to like say the big number of just for starting in fall of 2025 graduates. I could, just in case You didn't get a chance to share that at the top. Can we end with just how big you
Yeah.
all are going out of the gate here?
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. So, the college system of Tennessee is the largest system of higher education in Tennessee. We serve 13 community colleges, 24 technical colleges across the state. We're almost in every county. So, annually, we serve about 100,000 students. So, with our fall 2025 graduating class, all of our students will receive this learner record. And it's out the door. Maybe we're going to keep tweaking it. We've got a lot of future plans for this. I'm already in conversation with not only some universities about how this feeds into a transfer pipeline and how those credentials can be consumed by university partners for our students, but also across state lines. So we're working with the state of Alabama. I've had outreach from several other states. So around Tennessee, we're right in the middle of a lot of states. Our students are going to be moving across state lines. How does this go across state lines? So again, as they follow jobs or as we bring people in, we can share that learning with each other. So we're excited. We're going to be launching this at our SAACRAO conference. We're going to have an official party because it was 7 years of technical development. We're the first to do that. There was no playbook for us to follow. But we're really excited that it's finally come to fruition and has been supported by our state government to go to scale. And so we're making it happen. And the future, I mean, again, there's just so many possibilities as we move forward.
And tons of possibilities. And I loved how you at the end hit on that and just, helping as we think of literal learning mobility of our learners, that we're making that record of learning just as mobile as they are. Heidi, Leming, thank you so much for joining us on AACRAO's Credential Chats.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, everybody, for taking the time to share your time and attention with us, and have a badge-worthy week, y'all. Bye-bye.